Maybe you've already felt this strange sensation. The more you grow inside, the more distant the world seems to become. It's as if, by getting to know yourself better, you discovered that you no longer fit in the same places as before. It's not your imagination. This movement is real, and however lonely it may seem, it's part of something much bigger happening in your soul. If you're living through this right now, know that you're not alone in this silent crossing. There's a cruel paradox in personal growth. The more you evolve, the harder it becomes to find company that resonates with who you're becoming. It's as if you're learning a new language while everyone around you continues speaking the old one. You try to share your discoveries, your deepest reflections, but you notice an empty stare, a polite smile, a quick change of subject. It's as if there's an invisible barrier between you and people who once seemed so close. What used to feel natural, those conversations about the weather, work complaints, gossip about acquaintances, discussions about TV shows, now sounds hollow, without substance. It's not that you've become better than others, but rather that your thirst has completely changed. You can no longer satisfy yourself with shallow waters when you've discovered oceans within yourself. And this scares you because it seems like you're losing important connections in your life, people you love, places where you felt comfortable. The truth is, you're not losing anything real. You're just discovering what was always superficial and what really had substance. It's a painful but necessary process. Like a snake that needs to shed its skin, you can't grow without leaving behind what no longer serves you. This is one of the oldest laws of existence. To be born again, you must let die what you were before. And this doesn't happen without resistance, without mourning, without a certain nostalgia for what was left behind. It's strange how nobody prepares you for this specific loneliness of growth. In schools, they teach math, history, science, but nobody talks about the melancholy of evolving. Nobody mentions that discovering who you really are can mean distancing yourself from who you thought were your equals. It's as if there's a silent pact to keep people on the surface of things, because it's more comfortable, more predictable, more controllable. When you begin a journey of self-knowledge, something inevitable happens. You start seeing beyond appearances, and this doesn't just apply to yourself, but to all the relationships around you. It's as if you developed emotional X-ray vision, capable of perceiving hidden motivations, disguised needs, unconscious games that sustain many connections. Suddenly, you see the patterns that repeat, the subtle manipulations, the emotional dependencies that previously went unnoticed. You realize that some friendships existed only for convenience, someone to split the restaurant bill with, to not be alone on weekends, to have company in life's complaints. Others out of habit, people you've known for so long you don't even remember why you became close. Some out of fear of loneliness. Any company was better than no company. And this hurts more than you imagine, because it means recognizing that you invested years of energy in connections that were, deep down, transactions disguised as friendship. You discover that certain people approached you not for who you were, but for what you offered. Your energy, your time, your attention, your validation, your ability to listen without judging, your emotional availability. It was an unequal exchange that you couldn't see before, because you were too busy trying to be accepted, trying to fit in, trying to be useful so that nobody would abandon you. Like that friend who only showed up when they needed to vent about marriage problems, but disappeared when you tried to talk about your own issues. Or that family that demanded your presence at gatherings, but criticized you when you tried to be authentic, when you expressed different opinions, when you dared to question traditions that no longer made sense to you. This perception hurts in a way that's hard to explain. It hurts to realize that you gave a lot and received little. It hurts to discover that some people only sought you out when they needed something. A favor, a shoulder to cry on, an outlet for their frustrations. It hurts to recognize that you invested emotional energy in relationships that lacked genuine reciprocity, where you were always the one who listened, who consoled, who was available, but rarely were you listened to, consoled, or prioritized. But this pain is liberating, because it allows you to stop feeding connections that emptied you from within, that left you tired after each encounter. There's a moment in life when something inside you awakens and begins to ask for more. More truth, more depth, more authenticity, more real connection. It's as if your soul had grown and the old clothes no longer fit. They're tight, uncomfortable. They limit your movements. You feel an inexplicable discomfort in situations that used to be normal. Superficial parties where people talk about nothing. Empty conversations that go in circles. Environments where you need to pretend to be who you're not to be accepted. This internal expansion creates a natural conflict with old patterns that governed your life. You can no longer participate in discussions about things that don't matter. Celebrity lives, neighborhood gossip, endless complaints about the government or the weather. You no longer have patience for unnecessary drama, for conflicts created by wounded ego, for power games disguised as relationships. You can no longer stand relationships where you need to dim your light. Hide your discoveries. Pretend you don't see what you're seeing so that others feel comfortable with their own limitations. It's an inner calling for something more truthful, more aligned with who you really are. It's like when you realize you can't stand those endless conversations about other people's lives anymore, about who did what, who said what, who bought what. But you'd like to talk about dreams you haven't yet realized, fears that haunt you at night, purposes that are being born within you, mysteries that intrigue you about existence. You want to talk about what really matters, but you realize this scares people, that they change the subject, that they look at you as if you're too complicated, too deep, too intense. Often this process is confused with arrogance or superiority, but it's not that. It's simply that you can no longer deny your essential nature. You can no longer pretend that you're satisfied with crumbs when your soul asks for a feast. It's like a plant that has grown and needs a bigger pot. It's not whim, it's not fussiness, it's vital necessity. Your soul is asking for space to breathe, to express itself, to exist fully, without cuts, without edits, without masks. In the universe of depth psychology, there's a concept called individuation, the process by which a person becomes who they really are, integrating all parts of themselves, including those that were previously unconscious, repressed, or denied. This process is like you're assembling an internal puzzle, and each piece discovered changes the complete image of who you are. Naturally, this affects how you relate to the world, to people, to life situations. Individuation isn't a linear or predictable process. Sometimes you advance quickly, sometimes you retreat, sometimes you stay still for months processing a single discovery. It's like peeling an onion. Each layer removed reveals another layer, and sometimes you cry in the process, not from sadness, but from the intensity of finally seeing yourself whole. And the more you know yourself, the more specific your needs, your values, your choices become. This naturally puts you on a different frequency from those who are still in the initial stages of this journey. When natural distancing happens, many feel guilt, as if they're betraying who they always were, or abandoning people who love them. Am I the problem? Am I being selfish? Should I try harder to maintain these relationships? What if I'm wrong about all this? But what if this silence wasn't a definitive separation, but a sign that something new is being born? What if it were a fertile space where your new version can germinate, where you can reinvent yourself without the pressure of meeting old expectations? The silence between you and certain people isn't necessarily an end. It can be a necessary interval, like a pause between movements of a symphony. Like an orchestra that needs this pause to reorganize the score, your life is rearranging the instruments, changing the tone, preparing a new melody. Some people may return when you're more aligned with yourself, when this new version of you stabilizes. Others maybe not, and that's okay. Not every relationship is destined to cross all phases of our evolution, just as not every song is played from beginning to end by the same instruments. This period of quietude is sacred, even when it hurts. It's where you learn to be with yourself without needing to fill the void with connections that don't nourish your soul. It's where you discover that you can be your own company, that you can find peace in your own presence, that you can have fun alone, that you can console yourself, that you can inspire yourself. It's training for future healthier and truer relationships, where you don't connect out of need, but out of genuine affinity. Like those moments when you prefer to stay home reading a book that transforms you, rather than going out to encounters that leave you empty inside. Or when you choose a solitary walk in nature instead of another party where you need to shout to be heard and pretend you're having fun. It's learning that the quality of company matters more than quantity, that being alone with purpose is better than being accompanied without connection. One of the sharpest pains of personal growth is realizing that you've developed a language that few can understand. When you try to share your inner discoveries, your deepest reflections, your new perspectives on life, on relationships, on purpose. You encounter empty stares or comments that minimize your experience. You're overthinking. Life is simpler than that. Why complicate it so much? You were always kind of weird anyway. This phase will pass. It's not arrogance to feel that you're on a different frequency. It's pure and simple reality. You've gone through internal transformations that fundamentally changed your way of perceiving the world, people, events. It's as if you learned a new emotional and spiritual language, but you're still surrounded by people who only speak the old dialect. Communication becomes truncated, incomplete, frustrating, like trying to explain colors to someone who was born blind. This misunderstanding hurts in a particular way because you still have love for these people. You still feel historical connection. You still hold affection for what you lived together. But you can no longer express yourself fully with them. It's like trying to play a complex symphony on an out-of-tune piano. The music is inside you, clear and beautiful, but the instrument can't reproduce it adequately. And you feel alone, even when surrounded by people, even at family gatherings, even in groups of old friends. It's like when you try to explain to your family why certain traditions no longer make sense to you. The rampant consumerism of holidays, the competition disguised as socializing, social conventions that seem empty, but they interpret it as rebellion or ingratitude. Or when you try to talk with work colleagues about professional purpose, about work that has meaning, about how it's possible to be successful without sacrificing your soul, and you receive looks of incomprehension, or comments about how you're privileged to be able to think about these nonsense things. One of life's most difficult lessons is discovering that love, by itself, isn't always enough to sustain a relationship. You can deeply love someone, a childhood friend, a dear family member, an old romantic partner, and still realize that you're no longer in the same tune, no longer share the same values, no longer walk in the same direction. It's not lack of affection. It's difference in frequency, in psychological moment, in willingness to grow. Some people become comfortable at a certain level of consciousness and don't want to move. They've found a comfort zone and prefer to remain there, even if this zone is limiting, even if it causes subtle suffering. Others feel a constant calling to explore, question, evolve, even if it means discomfort, uncertainty, temporary loneliness. When these two natures meet, there can be profound conflict that no love can resolve. One pulls toward stability, toward the known, toward the predictable. The other pulls toward transformation, toward the unknown, toward the possible. One seeks certainties, definitive answers, absolute truths. The other embraces mysteries, asks better questions, lives the contradictions. One wants ready-made answers, tested formulas, already traveled paths. The other prefers to invent new questions, explore uncharted territories, create unique paths. There's no right or wrong in this. They're just different rhythms of soul, different stages of development, different needs for growth. And when you accept this, you can love from a distance, without resentment, without guilt, without the need to convert the other to your way of seeing the world. You can honor what you live together, and also honor what each needs to live separately. Love remains, but takes on a new form, freer, less dependent, more respectful of fundamental differences. Like that romantic relationship that dissolved, not for lack of love, but because you were growing in different directions. He wanted security, routine, predictability. You wanted adventure, discovery, transformation. Neither was wrong, but you could no longer walk together without one sacrificing their essential nature. The separation hurt, but it was also an act of love, allowing each to be who they really were. In the ancient alchemical tradition, there's a phase called nigredo, the work in black, the moment of dissolution where everything seems to crumble only to later be reborn purified. It's a process that seems destructive on the surface, but is essentially creative in the depths. The loneliness you experience during your personal growth is exactly this, an emotional and spiritual nigredo, a necessary dissolution process so that something new can emerge. This dark phase isn't divine punishment for having dared to grow. It's not punishment for having questioned the status quo. It's gestation, preparation, silent transformation. It's like being in the womb of time, being molded for a new way of existing. Everything that isn't essential in you is being dissolved so that your true nature can emerge without obstacles. Superficial relationships drift away. Old patterns dissolve. False identifications dissolve like salt in water. It's uncomfortable because you still can't see what's being born. It's like being in the middle of a metamorphosis. You're no longer the caterpillar, but you haven't yet become the butterfly. There's a period of darkness, of non-form, of pure potential that hasn't yet manifested. It's normal to feel fear, confusion, even regret. It was easier before, you might think. At least I had certainties. I had people around me. I had a clear identity. During the Negredo, you learn one of life's most important lessons. Being alone without feeling abandoned. Discovering that you can be your own source of company, your own source of love, your own source of wisdom and inspiration. It's not selfishness, it's spiritual maturity. It's learning to relate to yourself in such a deep and nurturing way that all future relationships become healthier and truer. It's like learning to dance alone before dancing with someone. You need to know your own steps before you can follow or lead another rhythm. There's an invisible law in life that few understand. When you change internally, the external world automatically reorganizes to reflect this change. It's not coincidence that certain people drift away when you evolve. It's the natural movement of existence, seeking harmony, balance, coherence. Everything that vibrates at a different frequency from yours tends to naturally drift away, creating space for what's aligned with your new reality. You're not losing people. You're realigning with your deepest truth. It's like tuning a musical instrument. Some notes that previously seemed harmonious now sound clearly dissonant. It's not that the notes are bad in themselves, it's that they no longer match your current tuning. And this is perfectly natural, part of the spiritual maturation process. The universe has its own wisdom for organizing meetings and partings, approaches and distances. Trust this invisible process, even when you can't understand it rationally. What drifts away from you wasn't destined to be part of this new phase of your journey. And what's destined to arrive, the right people, the right opportunities, the right experiences, will arrive at the right time, when you're ready to receive connections that resonate with who you've become. It's like when you change jobs and notice that some colleagues naturally disappear from your life, while others get closer, revealing affinities that weren't obvious before. Or when you move to a new city and discover that some friendships don't survive the distance, while others strengthen, proving they were really solid. Life is constantly reorganizing your relationships to reflect your internal growth. After going through the mourning of lost connections, and yes, it's real mourning that deserves to be honored, something magical happens. You discover the extraordinary freedom of being who you really are, without needing to mold yourself to fit others' expectations. It's an unprecedented lightness, like taking off tight clothes after a long day of performance. You no longer need to pretend interest in subjects that don't touch you. You no longer need to laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You no longer need to agree with opinions that don't resonate with your inner truth. Solitude stops being loneliness and becomes presence. You learn the fundamental difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Being alone is an external, circumstantial, temporary condition. Feeling lonely is an internal state of disconnection, emptiness, lack of purpose. And when you make peace with your own company, when you learn to genuinely enjoy the silence of your mind and the depth of your thoughts, solitude becomes sacred, becomes an internal sanctuary that you carry wherever you go. Silence becomes dwelling, not prison. You discover that you can meditate without hurry, reflect without interruption, create without judgment, dream without limits. That you can have deep conversations with yourself, exploring ideas that aren't yet mature enough to be shared. That you can question your own beliefs, examine your contradictions, celebrate your discoveries in private. It's an intimacy with yourself that few manage to develop, but that's essential for future, more mature and authentic relationships. It's like discovering that you can be happy having coffee alone on a Saturday morning, watching the rain through the window, without needing external entertainment, without needing to fill the silence with noise, or realizing that you can go to the movies alone and enjoy the film more intensely, without having to worry if the other person is enjoying it, without having to make comments, just absorbing the experience completely. When you're truly ready to open up again to new connections, you realize the game has completely changed. The old rules no longer apply. You can no longer relate halfway, using social masks, hiding important parts of who you are, pretending to be less complex so as not to intimidate anyone. The new relationships you'll attract demand total authenticity, conscious vulnerability, emotional transparency. And this is scary, but also profoundly liberating. Starting over in other circles, meeting new people, forming different connections, asks for a courage you didn't even know you had. The courage of conscious vulnerability. It's showing yourself whole from the first encounter, with your depths, your discoveries, your transformations, your fears, your contradictions, your certainties and uncertainties. It's trusting that now you'll attract people who can handle your complexity, who value your depth, who respect your unique journey. You understand viscerally that you don't need many connections. You need true, authentic, nurturing connections. Quality surpasses quantity in all aspects. One deep conversation with someone who really understands you, who can keep up with your mental and emotional rhythm, is worth more than 1,000 superficial interactions that leave you exhausted. You're willing to trade popularity for intimacy, general approval for genuine acceptance, quantity of friends for depth of bonds. It's like preferring to have 2 true friends with whom you can talk about anything, from the most trivial to the most transcendent, than 20 superficial acquaintances with whom you can only maintain elevator conversations. It's valuing more one person who calls you when you're going through a difficult time than 10 who only show up when they want something from you. This solitary crossing may seem like punishment when you're in the middle of it, but it's actually deep preparation for a completely new way of relating. You're learning to be your own emotional anchor, your own source of validation, your own best friend. And this isn't pathological isolation. It's healthy emotional independence. It's the solid foundation upon which truly balanced relationships can be built. There are others walking silently through the same internal trails, also seeking, also growing, also feeling the same sacred loneliness that's part of the awakening process. You might not meet now, because each is in their own rhythm of transformation, but you're being prepared for each other. You're developing the emotional maturity, spiritual depth, authenticity necessary for connections that honor the totality of who you are, without needing to diminish your light. At some point in this journey, the paths meet. Not out of need, not out of convenience, not out of fear of loneliness, but out of deep mutual recognition. Out of real affinity that goes beyond superficial interests. Out of a harmony that transcends words, that communicates through glances, through comfortable silences, through mutual understanding without need for long explanations. You'll perceive these special encounters because they'll bring peace, not drama. They'll bring expansion of your consciousness, not limitation of your expression. They'll bring genuine presence, not desperate need. It's like when you meet someone and immediately feel like you've known each other for a long time, even though it's the first encounter. There's a soul recognition that dispenses with formal introductions. You're not regressing by losing people. You're being reborn into a more authentic version of yourself. Each relationship that dissolves is like a shell that falls from a seed that's germinating. It hurts in the moment, but it's absolutely necessary for growth. What leaves opens energetic and emotional space for what's aligning with your new truth. And this truth is more beautiful, deeper, more luminous than anything you've experienced before. What's awakening in you is a completely new capacity to love, out of internal abundance. Not out of fear of abandonment, but out of freedom of choice. Not out of psychological dependence, but out of conscious and deliberate choice. You're learning to relate from your completeness, not from your emptiness. And this will forever change the quality of your future connections. Trust this alchemical process, even when it seems cruel or unfair. It's not punishment for having dared to grow. It's preparation for a higher form of existing. You're being refined like gold in fire, purified like water that passes through multiple filters, prepared like earth that's plowed before planting. Loneliness is temporary, but the wisdom you're developing is eternal. The tears you shed today are fertilizer for the extraordinary relationships that are to come. And when the new connections arrive, and they will arrive in the universe's perfect timing, you'll be ready to receive them with an open heart, but not needy. With abundant love, but not dependent. With full presence, but not lacking. With deep gratitude, but not desperate. It will be a meeting between equals. between souls that made the journey back home, to themselves. The journey of personal growth is like walking on a steep trail up the mountain of self-knowledge. The higher you climb, the fewer people can keep up with your pace, not because you're better, but because each person has their own time, their own mountain to climb, their own challenges to face, and that's okay. Your function isn't to carry anyone on your back or slow down your pace so others feel comfortable. Your function is to keep climbing, trusting that at the top, you'll find others who made the same courageous journey there. The air up there is thinner, but also purer. The view is broader, clearer, more beautiful, and you'll discover that the solitude of the climb was worth every step, every tear, every moment of doubt. Because in the end, you're not alone, you're at home with yourself. If this video touched something deep in you, it's because you're not alone in this transformation journey. To explore even more the mysteries of the evolving soul, I invite you to discover our ebook Alchemy and Archetypes, where we dive into the depths of inner transformation processes. If this reflection resonated with your experience, leave a like so more people can find these words, and subscribe to the channel. Here, we explore together the deepest territories of the human soul.